Senator McAllister. Senator Smith.
Thanks very much. Congratulations again, Ms Wilkinson, on your appointment. Just the reference to media citations in the annual report. It's been a common feature in the annual reports, but in your new role as the Parliamentary Budget Officer, how do we ensure that media citations don't become the record of success for the Parliamentary Budget Office and inadvertently bump up against its sort of independent, non-partisan role, which the Watt Review identified as one of its standout features? How do we strike the appropriate balance between being involved in public policy debates and discussions without actually compromising the independence and high regard of the PBO?
So, I guess the way I would think about it is that media citations are one measure of the impact that the PBO research may be having in the broader public discussion. I think it's important that we keep an eye on other measures, other indications of how the PBO work is influencing either parliamentary debates or public discussions. And so one of the things that we have committed to is we've certainly committed to repeating the survey that we conducted, I think it was in the middle of the last term of Parliament, of the key users of the PBO in order to get a judgment directly from this broad range of stakeholders as to how useful the PBO services and the PBO research was. So I guess my sense is that the media citations are a useful way of us getting a sense as to whether we are producing material which is accessible enough to be being used in the public debate, but it's not the be-all and end-all. As much as anything else, I guess the thing that we have to be mindful of is how the PBO is perceived rather than just whether it's cited. And that comes down to a more nuanced examination of the way in which our reports are received and the way in which they're used in the public debate. So I think it probably would be useful for us to look within the media citations to get a sense of the extent to which we are being used in a way which is contributing information to the debate, which is exactly what our objective is, rather than becoming a player in the debate itself.
Two questions in regards to the Watt Review.
Yep.
The first is sort of a progress report around recommendation 4, which was the proposition of using experts or panels of experts outside of the Parliamentary Budget Office to inform or test the work of the PBO. Could you just give us an update in regards to that?
So, as I think you're aware, Senator Smith, I'm certainly very much in favour of the PBO working to be, drawing upon a broader range of resources in trying to build its capability. We get asked questions across, every area of government. We're quite a small team. It's just not realistic that we can have all of that expertise in-house. So we have been working through the proposal to implement a panel of external advisors. The way in which we're thinking about it is that this panel is going to work best for the PBO if we use it in a number of different ways. There could be, or there are likely to be some members of a subset of external advisors who are people who themselves engage directly with our research program, and so we'll be using this to seek feedback from them about how we're writing our reports, about the nature of our work program going forward. There are other external advisors who we think it would be useful for us to have identified who have specific subject matter expertise, and we will be able to use them as part of the process of both benchmarking some of our costing models and our analysis work, and also testing ex post evaluations of some of the costings work that we do. So we're expecting, and I'm expecting to write to the JCPAA shortly, outlining how we're expecting this panel of external advisors to operate. But it's going to be, across the panel of external advisors, the way in which we engage them will probably vary quite a lot, depending on the particular expertise that an individual will be bringing to the panel.
So it's not that we'll be contracting out the work of the PBO?
We will not be contracting out any work to this panel of external advisors, and we won't be compromising what are the very important confidentiality provisions that the PBO holds very dearly. No, this will be much more, we will be using these people to test some of the ways in which we're thinking about policy areas in order to make sure that when we're providing advice to parliamentarians, it's as well informed as possible.
And we won't be remunerating any of these expert advisors, expert panel members?
We're certainly not expecting to remunerate any of them. If we were to convene meetings in Canberra, we may pay for travel for them to join us in Canberra. But I think we're looking at all sorts of ways in which we can engage with these people, most of which are likely to be over the phone rather than sort of face-to-face meetings.
My final question goes to recommendation 8, which is one that I'm quite interested in. This is about the opportunity that might exist to shift or transfer the responsibility for the intergenerational report to the PBO. So at the moment, the intergenerational report it is owned by government,
yep.
Owned by the Treasury. Recommendation 8 in the Watt Review sort of suggested that consideration could be given to transferring responsibility of the intergenerational report to the PBO on the basis that the work or the contents of the intergenerational report might get better appreciated, might find the contents of that report better taken up by government if it was owned independently rather than subject to partisanship, which has probably characterised the execution of certainly the last intergenerational report. Given your Treasury experience, what's your view in regards to that, and how difficult might that be to progress towards?
So, Senator, as you're aware, it is a matter for government as to whether they wish to
give it up?
Shift responsibility for the intergenerational report from the Treasury, from the government.
From the government.
So it's not, currently it's a report of the government.
Mm-hmm.
Treasury obviously do a lot of the work to put the report together, but it is at the end of the day a report of the government, and it's a matter for them if they wish to transfer that to the PBO. At the end of the day, whether that would mean that the intergenerational report would then have more influence over the public debate, different people will have different views as to whether that's likely to be the case. I guess I would note that there are certainly PBO-type organisations in other countries that do have responsibility for providing some of that long-term forecasting. So it certainly is done in other countries. The Congressional Budget Office, that's one of their responsibilities. It's one of the responsibilities of the Office of Budget Responsibility in the UK. In relation to the recommendation 8 from the review of the PBO, what we're doing in the way in which we structure our research program is to try and make sure that we are improving the robustness of our medium-term forecasting framework, which, to my mind, is pretty integral if you are then going to be thinking about what the longer-term pressures and trends are. And in 2 of the pieces of work that we've identified that we would like to at least commence in this year, There's one report on ageing, and there's another report which is looking at the different sorts of pressures on the tax system. Both of those are going to issue...
Over the medium term, medium to longer term?
It's over the medium term, but both of those are issues which certainly would affect fiscal outcomes over the medium term and the longer term.
So in terms of the PBO's current capacity, it wouldn't yet have the capacity to take on an intergenerational type report. It is something that it would have to move or grow towards if that was to happen?
So I think that the PBO has been building that capability essentially actually from its establishment. So the focus of the PBO work program has been increasingly over time looking at filling the gap in the public policy debate, which is around what the medium-term pressures on the budget are. And that's so that it's a continuous process, and we'll be. I mean, we're certainly anticipating in the 17-18 year that we'll be continuing that continuing to make progress.
Great, thanks very much. Congratulations again. Thank you.